Y'all didn't talk about Little House on the Prairie, right?
No, like you can give that information. I thought it was so surprising.
The #1 streamed show in the United States last year was Little House on the Prairie.
What even service is it on?
I think it's on Peacock.
Oh,
It was by far the hours streamed.
There's a bot out there. There's a bot out there watching
outpaced everything.
No, we know so many.
To the point now where they're going to do a remake of it and put it on streaming.
Wow.
Did you watch this show?
I've never seen an episode.
Okay, well, let me say this. It is the most dramatic, sad thing. And every day, that same music that would come on where that little kid's tumbling down the hill, I still have PTSD.
Jennifer's she's like the only woman in her generation that I know that has no liking of this show.
Well, their barn burned down about 30 times.
Every woman that's Gen X
they love it,
loving this
and
show.
They love their kids to watch it.
We watched it. My cousins
dolls.
and my family, they watched it live and in syndication.
I think that's where began my hate of period dramas because. And if there's a storm coming, Paul, get out there. And definitely a horse is going to die. Yeah. Definitely.
One episode convinced Jennifer to stay off of drugs.
For the rest of my life.
There you go.
One of the characters tried, I guess opium is probably and he had to come off of that. It was so brutal that I committed to a drug-free life.
I did read the books because growing up,
you read the books?
Because we had accelerated reader, which is where you had to get a certain amount of points.
It's a lot of AR points.
It's a lot of AR points. I mean, it was like I could knock out the entire 6 weeks in one book.
But weren't they depressing?
I don't think they were like the show, though. They didn't have to, I think they probably got maybe one season in and started having to write their own content.
They went to
because
war.
There's not that many Little House on the Prairie books. There's not like a million of them.
I mean, it was every episode.
But it was always a very cold winter. Very concerned about having food for the winter. That was a pretty common fear.
And then they only have...
Out of everything you can stream now, there's so much content. That's still the #1 show.
Fake news.
I think people are you don't believe it at all. I think people are so hungry for values-based content right now. And because what's happened is that some of these bigger places where you could find a pretty safe content have now gone to where we're introducing characters that,
Are we values-based content?
What?
Are we values-based content?
Sure, I think so.
Okay.
I think
maybe we're next.
I think
we're next.
We're next to blow up.
Yeah, we're next to blow up off the prairie and then us.
Well, let's get the blowing up started. Do we want to get the show started?
Is that the way to say that?
Hello, and welcome to the Almost Amazing podcast from the CityRise Network. Hosted by Jennifer Dennis and produced by me, Justin Kello. We're a podcast that was supposed to be focused on parenting, but we've kind of lost the plot along the way. Honestly, we don't know what this podcast is about, but we talk to incredible people who love Jesus, and our hope is to provide encouragement and fun whenever possible. If our lack of clear direction bothers you, we apologize, but no one is making you listen to this podcast, unless you're married to Jennifer. Andy, thanks for listening.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Almost Amazing podcast. We're excited you're here today and thankful that you are a committed listener. But I just am assuming that you are. You may not be.
They could be brand new.
They could be. Should I start that over or just go with it?
They could have tuned in just for Andy.
Oh, yeah.
They could have been like, I heard Andy was on the show and I'm watching this.
Andy's on the show today.
Andy.
In fact, Andy Dennis is on the show today, and we're just leaving him in for... Oh, we changed the format of our show.
I mean,
should I begin with that?
I wouldn't say we're changing. We're trying something today.
We're trying something new. I feel like I should have started with that.
In the same way we brought Andy on for our first episode. When we were trying something new, right? Was he the first one?
No.
Who was the first one?
He was like the 25th episode.
Who do we meet with the first time?
Sydney Yeager.
Oh, okay.
Sydney Yeager was our first ever person on the show.
Andy typically is this person that Jennifer brings on when she can't think of anything else to talk about.
That is not true.
Really is
my goodness, that's not true.
That Andy will bring the content.
Okay, here's what we're going to try this for about 10 episodes.
Yeah.
And what we're doing is...
I'm doing 10 episodes?
No.
Good news for you.
No. Oh, no.
Did you see how fast he was like, wait, no, I did not agree
to this.
I agreed to today only.
This is not in my contract.
For the next... Right. For the next 10 episodes, what we're doing is we're bringing on people that we enjoyed talking and visiting with as usual, but we're going to talk topics based. Like we're going to talk about a certain topic every week in more depth and detail rather than getting to know a brand new person and hearing about what they're doing. Hold on, I've got to sneeze.
Oh, where are you going to look? Don't look at me.
Thank you.
Does this count as a covering your mouth? Does you just putting your 2 fingers on the bridge of your nose
like spraying
count as covering your mouth from all of the germs just coming out of your
Yeah, I
mouth?
think I did pretty well considering my hand's a little wet.
I wonder you're not a school teacher anymore. You didn't.
There you go.
didn't learn.
We're starting out with all the compliments. Okay. Welcome, Andy.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here today.
Mm-hmm.
So we won't have beginning of the show fodder. We just bring them in.
Chat. I mean, he's part of the chat.
We bring them in for the entire show.
They're part of the chat.
It's a new format.
So what's new with Andy?
Let's begin. Andy, what's going on?
what's new with me.
Are you going on a mission trip next week? It's spring break.
For me, it's not next week. It's 2 weeks. We have 2 teams going from Rice. We have one going to do beach reach in South Padre.
Classic.
And I have a group of students from a Spanish-speaking Bible study that
you
have,
lead?
I don't lead. One of my wonderful coworkers leads, and we're going to work with a Spanish-speaking church in Galveston, church plant down there.
That's an easy trip.
Yeah, it is. And there are lots of like people on work visas down there that are Spanish speaking. And so this church is trying to reach them and doing a good job of that. So we're going to partner with them as well as do some university work because most of the other colleges down there are on spring break next week and we're on the next. So
we're going to Arkansas.
Are you going to Arkansas? What part?
Walmart land. What town is that? Bentonville?
Bentonville.
Yes, Fayetteville. It's right next to Fayetteville.
Is it? So maybe we'll go there too. Kristen plans our vacations, not because I won't, but because she prefers to know what's going on. She really
and I know
likes
she's
to know.
probably looked and done a lot of research to make it a great
so we're
trip.
doing outdoorsy stuff and, parks, and there's apparently it's pretty up there.
It's beautiful up there.
It's a really pretty city.
Your daughter didn't almost go there, did she?
Yes.
Y'all did go look at it,
She was
didn't
our
you?
second choice, yes.
And it didn't happen.
I love Fayetteville, man. That is, but there are all of the cities around there, like Fayetteville, are just like these beautiful,
little towns,
quaint.
yeah.
Yes,
You get that
yes.
town square feel.
But I will say Fayetteville is especially beautiful. But I don't know if you'll be stopping.
I don't know what we're doing. Kristen's in charge, but that's what we're doing. Our kids are actually dreading it because when we told them we weren't flying, they were like, "What?" And I was like, I didn't get in a plane until I graduated high school.
My first flight, I was in my 20s before I got on a plane the first time.
Like, so spoiled. It's like, yes, we're driving. Get over it. You have an iPad and a Switch each. You both have 2 things. Like,
You're going to be fine.
It was really frustrating for me.
Olivia doesn't like to stay in hotels anymore. She's like, oh,
Airbnb only?
is it going to be a nice hotel? Like, and that irritates Andy because, man, we stayed in crazy hotels growing
Really
up.
terrifying
some
ones.
crazy Airbnbs too.
We stayed in motels coming up where you'd park at the, and go in from the
exterior door.
outside.
Yes, like totally feeling unsafe because it's like just exposed to the
there's
world.
nothing protecting you.
We never thought about that growing up.
Yeah.
No, we didn't have to. We didn't know about everything that you do now. So
now we stay in homes of strangers that we don't know.
we're actually going to Florida. Yes, exactly. We're going to Florida. My sister's getting married. And let me say, this is her second marriage. And I think it's going to be such a meaningful event. But let me tell you, if she was a person looking for signs of maybe we shouldn't get married, the first thing that fell through is her dress. Her dress fitting didn't fit, which is some people would be like, oh, is this a sign? Then her flower people messed up somehow. And so she had to get new flower people. Then her... she wasn't able to get the food wasn't working out, so that's had to change. And today, where her location is a Navy base with an active shooter, and they have canceled her wedding location.
What?
And I'm like, and she says, oh, and then her shoes didn't work out. Not that that's a bigger deal.
So she had to find a different place?
Yes.
Just because they're an active shooter today? It'll be gone
They're
tomorrow?
having an active shooter. I know, but they're shutting down everything. And they're shutting
doing like a reenactment kind of thing.
No, like there's a literal active shooter on the base
As we speak right now.
as we speak right now.
And the wedding is when?
On Saturday. And they've canceled everything.
Wow.
And her wedding has been moved. And she goes, it makes you kind of think, should I be looking at these signs? And I thought, well, if you're going to go down that path, these are definite signs. But if you don't believe in signs, then God has got this. And my little sweet mom, she's like, well, Jennifer, I just think the Lord wanted it at a church.
Oh.
And I go, Mom, the Lord would not
It's a lot of work
an active shooter
to get it at a church.
I know.
Wow.
So she's getting married this weekend. We're going for the wedding.
Are you the flower girl?
No, I'm not even a bridesmaid.
Oh.
Her daughters are going to be her bridesmaids, and they're wonderful. And Andy's going to be the photographer. She's got another buddy backing up.
Not really. What does that mean?
The other person said, she said the other person.
Her other friends planning to be there. We hope she comes.
So
But
me
is that
saying
not
no
wild?
to using a church camera is not that big a deal anymore. Because Jennifer Dennis had the audacity.
I cannot believe you're bringing this to our podcast audience. Justin.
To say, Justin, can I borrow a church camera just for a weekend?
I told her no on that too.
I said, Justin will give
And
me
I was
a
like,
camera.
oh, where? She goes, in Florida. I was like, Jennifer, no. Like, no. Take a camera to Florida.
Knowing that it was going to be in my care.
Well, a little bit. But here's the thing. I just was trying to communicate. Honestly, our phones are so good right now.
That's what I thought.
I'm going to go get my phone upgraded tomorrow.
If you can get close enough.
I've thought about that a lot.
You can get great photos. Zooming, of course, you cannot beat like a focal length. Like you can't beat that. But if you can get close enough to not have to zoom, your phone can do incredible things.
Agree.
I think my phone's ready for an upgrade.
Do it. Go. Get that
You're
upgrade.
like, no, absolutely not.
I will say you're going to spend 3 hours in a Verizon store or whatever until you get that upgrade.
I agree. It's true. Nobody's got time for that.
If purgatory is real, I believe it is formatted after a cell phone store. Because it's not bad. But you are trapped there as they like download and re-upload and update. And it's like, it's not terrible, but like you're looking out at the world going by and you are trapped in that space.
It's about
and
the
you
same.
can't even look at your phone.
It's literally about the same amount of time and commitment that it takes to buy a car now.
It's wild.
Nowadays, I feel like we just do it online and they ship it to our house and you just pop a card in. And
You probably do that. I like to go to the store.
I go to the store to look around.
I like to get the good charger.
I don't trust myself. I'm afraid I'm going to do it wrong. And so I'd rather a professional do it than me.
Then I watch them load 700,000 pictures on my new phone.
You're more technical than most of the people working in those stores, probably.
They're like, we've downloaded all of your content. Now your new phone has 1% left. Would you like an additional? I'm like, yes, go ahead and give me a doodle bite so I can capture everything else I receive. Which brings us to our topic.
The doodle bites.
The doodle bites. So people are like, why am I listening to this show? We've really rambled a lot today.
Yeah. I'm asking that question.
So a new book has come out and it's caused a lot of.
Not really new anymore.
So there's a book that's come out recently in the last 10 years.
The last
that
2
is
years.
2 to 10 years.
Really shedding light on social media, phones, kids with technology, and it's called The Anxious Generation.
By Jonathan Haidt.
Jonathan Haidt. And Andy has read this book. And what I wanted to do is
ask, what's it like to read a book? That's our question.
Andy, tell us.
Because all we've seen are TikToks.
When you believe...
When you read books.
When you begin a book.
What's it like?
Where do you start? Some people like to start at the beginning. I like to open it flat to the middle.
Read the introduction.
So my question is, this book, and you had so many moments of, oh, wow. I think we've moved from, hey, technology is not great for kids, technology is bad for kids, to now we are for sure and have evidence and all of the things in place to say it's actually awful. And what I heard was someone said that technology is the new smoking. So I wanted to ask you, what were some of the insights that you gained from the book? And do you see that playing out as you walk with students who are kind of where this all hits?
I don't know that I can say it for 100% with a lot of, I think anxiety is a huge issue, right? And I think the combination of smartphones plus the pandemic kind of exaggerated some of those things. But I think what Haidt does well is highlights the fact that there was they started tracking anxiety and all the bad things that teens are experiencing now, the poor mental health, the anxiety, the depression, all of those things have tracked with the rise of smartphone use. So over a 10-year period, and this is in the United States and Europe, they've tracked a lot of the self-harm, the anxiety, the depression has tracked exactly with the growth, the explosion of cell phone use or smartphone use in our cultures. And the problem, I think the problem is that we were and he says this, is that we were just doing an experiment on our kids. Like we had no idea what we were putting into their hands. And for the first 10 years, like there was nobody with any kind of idea what we were getting into. And we know this as adults, like the phones are made to be addictive, right? And like social media stuff is made to be addictive. Like if, I forget the show that was on Netflix about it, where it was like
The Social Dilemma.
The Social Dilemma.
I just looked it up because I was like, I remember that show. It changed my life.
Yeah, because if there's not advertising, then you're the product. Yeah. Like if you're not paying for it, then you're the product. Mm-hmm. And that's the whole deal, is like they're molding and shaping our minds with content that we had no idea what we were exposing our kids to. And they were kind of this social experiment, which now we're finding is not healthy. I think the other thing that you pair that with is like the anxiety and anxiousness of parents too. That's kind of grown since the 80s, because we talk. Right. I mean, we can see like that's the joke on social media now, right? Like Gen X was the generation where they had to remind our parents where we were at 10 o'clock.
Right. Like, it's 10 o'clock.
It's 10 o'clock. Do you know where your kids are? Like our parents.
We were those kids.
Yeah. We were the kids where they were like, do you know where your kids are? Like,
what are they doing?
Like, and for kids to see that, they're like, those were real. Like, that's not some AI generation. It's like, no, that was what they ran before the 10 o'clock news every night. Do you know where your kids are? Mm-hmm.
Right.
And so there was a lot of freedom. There was a lot of chances for us to take risk. One of the things that he also points out is that as we've gone on, from the 90s onward, we've done as much as we can to reduce the risk in the lives of our children, which doesn't allow them to grow. Mm-hmm. There's zero risk, and also there's not a lot of free play that happens in our children either. So he outlines there's probably a lot more to it than that, but outlining the fact that our kids are screen based. They're not risk based. They're not outdoors based. Yeah. They're not doing things that help normal humans to grow into to well-functioning adults in the world beyond screens.
I did not read the book, but I did watch the TikTok video about it. And I say that because the video came across my feed before we've had the conversation. So it was a video that resonated with me so much that I saved it. I remembered it. I was like, this, because it's obviously when you write a book, you get on the circuit and you're talking about the main 4 points. Right. And one of the main points he made was that we are too protective physically and too permissive digitally. It's like a two-sided coin. It's like not only are you too protective in person and you won't let them play without supervision and but so many parents are insanely permissive digitally in that they just aren't paying any attention. And it is something that I've seen in real life with their friends, where their kids just have unrestricted YouTube access. And I was like, surely in this day and age, nobody's doing that anymore. Surely we figured that out. But so many parents are just like, hey, here's the entire internet. Like, here's everything. Yeah. And and they just assume their kid's not going to stumble into chaos. And like we went and my daughter spent some time with a friend and they got unrestricted YouTube time, and she came home and she's like, why can't I watch YouTube whenever I want? I was like, well, my wife's like, well, some families have different rules. I was like, their rules are bad. Our rules are good. Like YouTube.
Put it right on out there.
I'm not trying to be nice. Like, you should not be on YouTube as a 9-year-old girl without supervision. Like, there's nothing beneficial about that. Like, there's nothing good about that. And so I definitely lean more on being really protective digitally, but I don't think I've made the shift to like also be permissive and like more relaxed physically to let them like run across the street to go play with a friend, or like I really am like, I'm worried about my children being run over or abducted. And so that's the shift that's harder for me. It's really easy for me to restrict digitally. I'm kind of like the stickler in the house. It's like screen time is this long and you can't do these things. And so, but the letting them run around free, as they get older, that part scares me. Like, even we live 2 blocks from school. and letting them walk to school by themselves, I've seen them walk directly into traffic. I'm just like, I can't trust you yet to stop and look. Why can't I walk to school by myself? It's like, because both the driveways you go over to the city parking lot, we have 2 driveways that go through the city parking lot. I was like, you don't look, you just walk and hope for the best. Like,
yes, it's true.
And so it's hard for me.
Is that an issue of us like training them or their own like distractions?
Well, it's funny,
but whoever's fault it is, it's happening, and it makes me less confident because it'd be nice to say, yeah, see you later. And they walk to school at 2 blocks and I don't worry about them. But I've just seen them, like I've tested them. I was like, okay, listen, you have to look both ways. I'll watch you from this here and see. And they just walk into traffic. I'm like, what is the disconnect here? Like that's hard for me, is the physical, like letting them do more to,
the only time my grandmother ever whipped me, my grandmother Adams is Mama Adams. My sister and I got out on the street and we sat up against a car that was sitting in the street. So we were in the middle of a busy street in downtown Laurel. And what we decided our game was, is that when cars would come, we would put our feet up against our knees so that they wouldn't hit us. That was our game. Our grandmother walked out to find us, like playing dodge feet with cars. And she's like, get in this house. It was just a different,
it'd been good if you had a smartphone. Vibe. Maybe if you had YouTube.
I think that another issue that we're struggling with, and this is on the parent end, is that parents are addicted also to their phones. Right. And so they don't have the capacity to be in connection. They need escape so bad. And I think that, like what Andy said, the anxiety is so great that parents are trying to escape their own sort of existential crisis of anxiety of this whole world is kind of devolving. There's so much to be stressed about, so much to worry about, that they escape into their phones. And then you've got this kid and you're like, hey, here's a phone.
But I think part of the things that he would advise is like getting a life outside of screens, right?
Yes.
To where I know it sounds real hippie, but I know the term of like touching grass, like where you can get out and experience nature beyond the place where you have this world that you have in your phone. Like, I think those things are important to get out and do things that are not screen related. And that's where a lot of us fail, is just we're so tied to phones. And as adults, this is not from any book. This is just my observation, is that we're just so addicted to productivity in our culture that we can't detach ourselves from phones for a minute, because emails, texts, group me's, social media posts, all of these things are always coming at us, demanding our attention or making us feel like we have to respond to it in the moment, rather than taking a step back and asking, like, is this what I need to be doing now? How can I be better present in the moment? And even asking from a spiritual standpoint, like, what is this stuff doing to my soul? Right. Like, how am I, what is, and maybe we talked about this on one of my other visits, but asking that question of like, what is it that's discipling me right now? Right. Because that's good. Too often in our lives, like, for our parents, it could be, whatever news channel they're addicted to. For us, it can be like whatever social media platform that we enjoy, and it's like those things are discipling us in a certain way spiritually. They're forming us. Right.
And they're definitely forming our children.
And they're forming our children. And if we're not allowing the right things to form us, then we are going to be malformed, and we're not going to produce we're not going to produce the kind of fruit spiritually or familial in our families or in our communities. Like, what kind of things are being demanded of us from a smartphone that's asking us to be productive every day of the week?
They're saying now that the children's faith, for the most part, it's been in the past, children's faith is formed and pretty solidified by the time they're 18. And that's moved to 13. Like after 13, it's hard for kids to come to faith. It's a harder journey. They've become,
Well, yeah, it's something Lynn Sweet said probably 25 years ago.
Leonard Sweet.
Back in Soul Tsunami, he was making the point with when the internet was still relatively new. The world, at least the access to
the web.
The web was relatively new, but he was making the point back then that kids at the year 2000, like for us growing up, like we needed adults to help us access information, right? It was encyclopedias, it was libraries, it was teachers. Now, no one needs adults to access information, especially if you're getting a smartphone at 10. You have every answer that you need right there at your fingertips.
That's true.
And so when it comes to faith formation, making sure that they have some of those tools in their hands as children is a huge deal, because otherwise they're going to be formed by something that's not godly and maybe, not necessarily, I mean, it can be, but if that's what we're saying, if that's what the studies are showing, is that I would imagine that the tools that are forming us are not necessarily the same ones that we had growing up.
Well, it's small, but even in my kids, I see on the weekends, of course, they have more screen time. That's just the way it works. And they, the other day, Bear was just like, I don't want to go to church. I hate it. And I'm like, of course you think you hate it. It's going to be a little less entertaining than your iPad. You know what I'm saying? Like, they've gotten so spoiled by cheap entertainment that like they don't see the value or but when they get there, they like it. But you have to like peel them away from a screen to get them to do something of value. And so it's like we're creating these battles in our home that like it's really easy.
Right.
It's really easy to just say, oh, I'm tired of fighting this. We won't go to church. Or I'm tired of, like we created the issue. We are the one who allow him to have the screen. We are we could make a Sunday Sabbath rule where it's like, all right, no screens on Sunday no matter what. Well, then they're really going to go to church because they're dying for something to do.
Yes.
They'll eagerly go to church.
Your favorite thing ever.
Like, we can change that. And so this book, this guy talks about a couple of things you can do to help your kids. And one of them is delaying getting a smartphone. And so as someone who has had a full-blown teenager go through their home, I know on this side of teenage years, I'm like, they're going to get a phone when they're 35 years old. Like, I've got these like high hopes.
Did you say I had a full-blown teenager go?
You have.
Us. Okay,
you had a full real life teenager in your home, and then she left your home. Okay.
Right.
On this side of the teenage years, my thought is, why we just don't get her a phone? She'll be fine. Like, we'll get her a flip phone and she'll be great. Yeah. Like, we have these high hopes of like, this is what I'm going to do. As parents who have faced that reality, who I'm sure also had a similar.
We were the experimental people.
We were part of the experiment, we believe.
But I will say, like, the social pressure from both their peers as well as other parents, and their lack of their willingness or their lack of ability to regulate, like you were saying, with what they have is 100 times different than what we would wish, and I probably would have been more comfortable with flip phones. I'd be comfortable with flip phones. Oh,
Annie's always comfortable with the flip phone. It is like, here's my thought.
But again, like the social pressure, and I think that's one of the things that he does emphasize in the book is like, you need allies in this, right?
Exactly.
So you need people who are going to band together and say, we don't want to. We're going to wait until 16, and you need schools that are going to say, you're not allowed to use your phone in school. Like, those kinds of allies in the community are going to make it easier to make those decisions. But as of yet, we're not in a place culturally to have those kinds of allies.
Yeah.
To make things better.
I think you can choose your community, like, young, of people who are going to have these shared values and goals with you. But I mean, Olivia was at Pershing Middle School, and let me say this, I say this, but it's incorrect, but I will say this. The pressure for moms with boys is so high because they have this whole other addiction that they're trying to fight early on. And so
what addiction is that?
Is pornography. Pornography.
I think you can say that word.
Pornography. But even though that it is a risk for both genders, it is an absolute risk in a much bigger way for boys. So these moms,
but the trends are changing,
right? They're changing, but the moms are a lot more motivated to get together and make some of these decisions together. They're like, we don't want our boys addicted to this. We want to be on top.
But you're saying girl moms didn't have the same feelings.
We didn't do this. The girl moms didn't do this. They felt like it was connecting. This is so fun. And how could this be bad? And my child was on Instagram early. Yeah. And
I put a lot of boundaries on her.
You did, but when she first got on Instagram, it was a place where you just put your fun pictures. It wasn't like this full blown, let's see where your social rating lines up according to Instagram.
What kind of cool stuff are you doing right
now? Not only that it was like a scrapbook site. In the beginning, it was so mild. Well, then the next problem that came along was the posting of pictures, and friends would post pictures when they were together and you weren't with them. And then when girls were able to see that their friends were together and they weren't with them, that I think has been a devastating blow.
That's exactly what Haidt talks about. He says for young women, the problem, the psychological and social problems happen in young women because of social media. Young men, it's video games. And so the differences that happen there, whereas we may have been worried about guys and their issues, they're probably finding some of the same, they're developing some of those same issues through video games versus the social media. Yeah. And social, that's what he argues that you should keep your kids off of social media until they're somewhere between 16 and 18, I believe, if I can remember correctly. But like knowing that they have to be able to manage that stuff, because it is absolute, like a 12, 13-year-old on there is absolutely going to destroy
the most at risk.
It's going to destroy their mental health when it comes to that. When you start seeing who's with who, and then with Snapchat, if you're using Snapchat and you see the snap maps with everybody together, and you realize you're not invited.
Yeah,
to those
I would
places.
recommend. I would highly recommend is stay out of Snapchat as long as you can. The second thing is,
I tried.
The whole now is text groups. Mm-hmm. That's a whole new. That's another way to experience exclusion.
You can be in a classic text group with like a regular phone.
No. I'm saying, are you in the text group? Are you in the chat? Excluded. Like if you're invited on a trip, or you have an event coming up, or you have a group of friends doing something, they create a chat just for that group. And so let's say, for example, that you were invited to so-and-so's birthday party, and you're like, oh, I can't make it. So they create a chat group. They leave you out, and then they have an amazing time at that party, and they've all become buddies. And then that chat group lives on. You're out of it. You can't get back into it. And there's tons of these. Yeah. And so now it's the chat group that's another thing. And so they'll say, I'm in the chat group. I'm not in the chat group. It's wild.
I think as a parent, if you're listening, what I feel compelled to do, and I think many people should ponder, is, are you okay with being hated temporarily by your child for the long-term benefit of setting boundaries? I think that's the biggest struggle I see in most parents, is they just can't handle the idea of their child actually hating them. And like, that's like, we say it's a harsh, oh, I'm sure they love them. Like, no, they have deep feelings of, you are depriving me by not letting me have my phone. You are depriving me by not letting me have this. All my other friends have this. And it's like, are you okay with them hating you for a little while?
Well, Justin, it's not as simple as that. And let me explain. We didn't want Olivia on Snapchat. I did not like that. Oh, it disappears. You can't find what was shared. Your kids could go through an incredibly terrible experience. And let me say, if they see something in chat, they can tell if a kid saved it, taken a picture of it, like it dissolves. So the problem comes is when your kid's on a team. They get onto a team with their middle school or their high school. And the coach is like, the only way that we communicate is through Snapchat. The only way that you know where to go is through Snap. The only way that you know where your friends are getting together is through Snap. And so if you as a parent have decided you don't get Snapchat, you're also deciding that kid doesn't get to participate in that team.
Can you not be on Snapchat for them under their name? Like, can you not put Snapchat on your phone and be Olivia Dennis and no one's the wiser? And then you have all the information you need.
That's kind of weird.
But that's what I'm saying. That's the hatred that your job.
Because the same mindset that's like, I need to teach my kid. Here's my other issue. And this is where the other part of me comes in. At 16, so they're saying stay off of social media, off your phones till you're 16. At 16, your child is getting into a car Like they're getting into a car where they can drive anywhere, get to anything, do anything in their car. They're in charge of their life. They're in charge of other people's lives, but they can't get on Snapchat. Like at some point you have to.
Well, when did the Snapchat thing start though? Did the Snapchat thing start at 16 or it started?
No, it started probably, it's in middle school.
So that's what I'm saying. That's a handoff. You know what I'm saying? At 15, maybe you hand it off and say, hey, we've had your account for this long. You've seen how we use it. You've been aware of all the practices. I don't remember when we actually
got on Snap. It was
middle school.
I'm not saying I argued
against it.
I'm not saying it's forever. I'm not saying you never let them have it. But I'm saying like, if you're saying the argument you just gave me was we had to get on to know what's going on. I was like, great. Then I'm Olivia Dennis. Sounds good, girls. Tell me what to say. Like, hey, your friend said this.
And
tell me what to say.
Moms can track it. They can track. Like they can get in there. They can get involved in that. So yes, I think hold back.
I would literally let you like take a picture, send it.
But I'm saying that there's sometimes social. So to just say, you've got to get in with the nuance of it. But here's what I'm saying.
This is the battle
for you two. Right now. You guys are kind of like 8 personalities. You're like, this is the rule. This is the rule. But there's so much nuance to it. And when you just say to your kid, this is what we're doing. And this is it, to not have like you've got to really listen to what's happening in their lives, because it's easy to make a rule and just get your kid to be good with it. But to understand the social price they're paying and trying to help them with that.
But I think that's to go back to what I was saying. I think that's why you need to develop a group of allies, like you were saying, the young boys' mothers did, and talk about, like, be honest about, like, hey, if the boys are concerned about what the visual kind of things they see online, then women and mothers and fathers of daughters need to talk about the detriment of mental health by allowing our kids to be on smartphones. That's true. Right?
That's true.
So let's, instead of like continuing to perpetuate some of these ideas, can we not have a real conversation among parents and say, we're all going to get together and we're not going to do this for the sake of the health of our children, right? Like if we knew there was think about the pandemic, like if we thought there was something going to like hurt us, we all kind of banded together and did something. If we knew, like if we've seen the research on this and we know the detriment to mental health and those kinds of things, then why not band together for the sake of our kids and their own mental health, and seeing what it's doing in every aspect of their lives by not having this thing and introducing it as they are maturing in life.
Like I think if Olivia Dennis was in middle school right now, I think you wouldn't have been the only parent that's like, this is weird, right? That the coach will only talk to him in Snapchat. Like, I feel like you would have found allies really fast.
I think now we would.
The ignorance of 10 years ago, I think is unique to what you were facing.
Oh yeah.
So like, I want to be clear. I don't think you did it wrong. I'm just saying in my present age, with what I know, I think if I was in that same position now, it would not be hard to find 3 parents to be like, this is wild, right?
Right.
We don't have to do this.
We've got to do this a different way.
And I think, Jennifer, I mean, you had a relationship with almost every one of her mother's friends. I mean, every one of her friends' mothers.
Yes.
So I think it would be easy to just say, hey,
and they all had phones before.
But you didn't know.
By the way,
but you didn't know. You didn't know
that was something we needed to fight
I'm looking
for.
at the research, and I'm really worried about what this might be doing to that mental health of our kids.
Right.
Will you band with me? Like, can we?
Right.
Just
can we
make
work on
agreement?
This? And I think I'm seeing that more with parents now, as being working with children, working with these parents. I'm seeing a lot more of a push for that.
And more boundaries at a younger age.
Right. There's one other quote that I heard, a quotation that I heard this week that just floored me. And they said, how comfortable are you with knowing that most of your children's memories will not be of their own life? Because they've spent so much time on YouTube, TikTok. Right. That most of their memories are other people's lives. And I was just like, oh, because, I got on TikTok really late in my life. So I've had a lot of my memories. But the fact that it's like, that really floored me. I thought, oh my goodness, that's happening to kids.
I remember when Olivia was young, she would get on YouTube and watch other people's trip to Disney World. Like that's the kind of stuff. Like that was other people's
They would
memory.
remember
That's
they would
reality.
sit there and watch this woman unwrap packages.
Yeah.
That was like a really big.
My
That's wild.
children would rather watch a strange grown man play a video game than them play that same video game.
It's wild.
I tell them, I was like, guys, I'd rather you play the video game than watch this man play. Like, I bought the game for you. Like, I'd rather you play it.
I'm begging you.
And like get involved and like use your brain than just like watch this guy play it. and what I don't want to do in this podcast, because so many Christians are good about it, is just talking about how bad technology is and there's nothing we can do.
Right.
And so I really want to walk away with like what can
I think Andy and I think you come up with some really good things.
But
I love technology.
I mean, yeah. And
No doubt.
But I'm just like, I feel like
I'm making songs.
like even
I'm
when I
doing
take
all
photos,
this.
like I was at a student event last night taking photos, and it was hard to find a group of boys that weren't looking at a phone together.
Wow.
I could not get a candid of them just laughing and having fun because all of their fun was showing the screen to each other. And I was like, oh man, this is depressing. Like, I don't even, there's nothing you can do then. Cause like you can't control everybody, you know, their friends are going to have phones or whatever, but in your home, I think, and that's what I'm saying is like, you're going to have to, and this is all parenting. I think so much of my generation wants to be friends with their kids. And your generation may be similar, but like ours is very much like we want to be liked. Like we don't want to, we have a very strong desire to be liked by our kids. And that means when there's hard decisions to be made and your kids are saying, I don't like this or you because of it. I think a lot of people my age are giving into that quicker than they should. I'm not saying they shouldn't listen and like, okay, let me hear what you're saying. And like, let me consider your viewpoint. Like, yeah, you should do that. But like at the same time, you're going to do things that your kids hate.
Well, I think it goes from something that we think could be bad or this is not great, but you would never, no matter how mad your kids are, let them ride around without a seatbelt. Right. You would never let them smoke a cigarette.
Yeah.
Those are like
did all those things.
So we literally did. But to move,
did y'all have car seats as a child?
No.
No,
in the back.
I mean we did, but
across the floorboard on road trips.
We sat in our mom's laps until we could be strapped in somewhere, but are not strapped in somewhere. But what I want to say is, if it in your mind becomes on the level of the car seat, then I think people are willing to risk that and show over time where we made a great decision.
Which is what the guy's advocating for in the book. He's like, he's sounding the alarm bells.
This is a red flag.
He's like, hey, you need to understand this is bad. This is worse than you think it is.
Yes. And I think that's
in the same way smoking is worse than you think it is. And driving without a seatbelt is worse than you think it is. Like they had to have PSAs to convince people to buckle up and to convince people not to smoke and to convince, this is the PSA.
Not to litter.
Yeah.
I know. Litter was really effective.
This is the PSA for like, this guy's book is the PSA. Like, you need to understand how bad this is. Like, you need to be taken more seriously.
Right. Well, thank you guys. This has been a great discussion. This is a good topic. It got a little heated.
We're done already.
Yeah, we're finished. We've been here for like 3 days.
Joe Rogan would have just got warmed up.
Yeah,
I know, right?
This is a warm up.
They've just been changing subjects. Okay, so
why do you feel compelled to wrap it up? So when we have a guest that you're not married to, you have a meeting. Okay.
I have a meeting.
Because when we have a guest you're not married to. I haven't eaten
lunch yet. But are these new shows going to be longer?
I think they can be. I think they can go as long as it is compelling and as we have time for. When we have a guest that's like here just to like visit, like we feel really like we got to get them in and out. Like they're busy people and stuff.
I have one more. I had one more thought too. I think a lot of it, I think for a lot of us these days, screens are just easy parenting hacks, and it's tough. It's tough. I say this as a person that lives with my own guilt about it, is that it's easier to like, I mean, we sat in front of TVs, but there was also like, you get out and play and don't come back till the street lights come on kind of mentality. And maybe we got lunch at somebody's house and maybe we didn't, like there was a lot of independence for me growing up, but at the same time, like, I think there's just we need to, one, be a little less hesitant to let our kids go and play without supervision. And two, for us to not just default to whatever screen is nearby to help us to get through the day.
Sure. Yes.
That every day in parenting is not a penalty kill. It's an opportunity for us to really shape and have fun with our kids and help them to grow in ways that forms their character to not be anxious or
Right.
mentally.
Just like in everything else, it's so funny. Disciplined, conscientious people are winning the game in this. They're always winning.
I'll say this.
They're out running with their kids. They're out improving.
I will say this too, as someone who's living in this world of like, you use a screen to like buy some time because you don't get a moment to breathe unless your kids are looking at a screen. Because as soon as the screen goes off, they're either fighting or begging you to entertain them. We have to, when we turn off the screens, we have to literally say, we're not going to entertain you now. You have to go do something else for a little while.
Yeah.
Or I will play with you 15 minutes and then I'm done. And you have the other 30 minutes that like, as a parent, because as soon as the screen goes off, my son will just look at me like, what next? And I'm like, get out of here. Like, do anything you want away from this room. Like, but I have to literally force them. And then they get in their room and after 15 minutes, they finally find something and he finds his cards and Maggie finds her horses. And like, if you force them, but once again, you have to get past the discomfort of that initial moment of one feeling like you're a bad parent because you don't play with them.
The conflict.
Well, the conflict, but also some parents think that, well, I should want to play with my kids. But like, yes, you should play with your kids, but at the same time, they should play for 30 minutes by themselves. Like they should absolutely go away from you and play alone. Read a book. Take it
from the only child.
But I think we're in an entertaining generation of we feel like our kids need to be entertained all the time. Yeah. And if it's not us, it's organized sports.
We're definitely moving out of that. Right.
Like, I mean, we have to be intentional and you have to be okay with your kid like whining about it. But like, because even sometimes my wife is like, I just don't feel like battling it. I was like, well, I'll battle it. Get out of here. Go to your room and don't come out for 30 minutes. Like, go play with your toys and don't come out for 30 minutes. We have a timer we set. Like, when you got 45 minutes of alone playtime, don't come out until this timer's off. Or go out. We tell them they can go outside. They don't ever want to go outside. But it is discipline, though. It is, you have to be disciplined.
Conscientiousness, discipline wins the day. All right. Well, thank you, Andy. You're just kind of giggling like wrapping it up with something.
I think it's funny because Andy read this book a year ago and you were like, Andy, come here to talk about this book.
I think it's funny because I am not conscientious nor disciplined. And
well, that's why you're married. Like, that's the thing.
That's my hardest thing. But that's why I do have conscientious.
But let me say this, like, that's why, like, my wife doesn't have discipline like I do to like shut off the screens, but she has nurturing and she has care. Like, we're married for a reason. Like, there's a reason there's two parents. And if your weakness is discipline, don't fight so much against your partner who has the discipline.
Now, that could be a whole other show. Andy, we're going to need you to come back.
But in the
for
same,
my 10-week series.
Yeah. But in the same way, you shouldn't.
Andy's 10-week series.
Like, I just feel like that's why we're married. We're different. We have different strengths. Don't feel bad that you're not the disciplined one. Don't feel bad that I don't feel bad that I'm not the one they go to when they're hurt. It's like, great, they have mom. Like, that's who she is nurturing. That's who they should go to.
Yeah.
Well,
and I would say Jonathan Haidt's not a deeply spiritual person, but this book is must read. And if you don't want to read page by page, like the book is out there in audio form, and I would encourage either listening to it or reading it because it will impact you.
I'll say this for me, I resolved in this moment, like we're talking about the phone right now because my daughter's begging for one, and both me and my wife are on the same page about it right now. But there will come a day, I think, where one partner is more open to it than the other. I think that's the time to read the book. Is like, all right, before we make a decision, let's read this book together. Yeah. Before we decide yes or no permanently about this phone situation, because we're on different pages, let's read the book together and see where we end up. And if, maybe that will get you on the same page or affirm or redirect you.
Because the research is in now.
But if I read it now, I'm going to forget. But like when it comes to the day where my wife's like really like, no, she needs a phone now. I'm like, all right, let's read this book. Like, let's see if we're that convinced after reading this book.
Maybe so.
Okay. So I have the question for today. Can you believe it?
I can, because Amy sent you an app that writes it for you now.
Isn't that great? Aren't you thankful?
We could have been using AI this whole time.
I know. I'm so thankful.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I think I was the one that actually downloaded it for her.
I don't doubt it.
Yeah.
Did you?
I think I literally made you download it.
Okay. All right.
Have you downloaded it? No.
Usually you can ask like different levels of friendship based on what questions you're going to ask. Yeah. But I picked good friends because we've all known each other for a long time. And we've known each other a really long time, Andy, right? Sure. Okay. So, what is something about yourself that you hope will change, but probably never will?
Man.
What is something you hope changes about yourself, but probably never will? I wish, like, I can go first. You guys are just floating in silence over there. Great. Y'all are just so quiet.
I'm working on it.
I wish so much that I could stick to a daily routine of like cleaning and to where my house would be at this same clean level. Like I just just having the same schedule every day over a lot of days gets really mundane to me. I don't enjoy it, but it's so much like having a clean and neat and tidy home is about that. Like being consistent with things. And that's probably how I wish I was better. And I'm not sure that I'll ever love that. So I would say daily routine stuff. And that kind of routine building has huge payoff over time, you know? And so that's the thing that I kind of don't think that'll change.
Yeah.
I would say eating healthy. I think that will change in time.
Well, one day your body will absolutely demand us eat better. Like right now, my body's like, I can handle this for a few more years, but you got to get your act together.
I think I'll become like both my grandmothers ended up and my grandfathers ended up eating in a much more healthy way. So I do think that that's coming, but the daily routine business, All right. What about you guys?
I mean, talking about today, like our relationship with our kids, stuff like that, like, I am hopeful that one day, like right now, the things that entertain them are not things I'd like to participate in. And like really is you have to force yourself to like, okay, let me get down here and play with these, Transformers. I am hopeful that one day we find something that we enjoy together and neither one of us feels like it's like a work to be a part of it. And I'm not saying that that's a never, but I think it's a hope that I have. And so I guess how do I hope I'll be better one day? It's like, I hope I'll be better at enjoying the things my kids enjoy. Cause right now they enjoy things I don't enjoy, but things like, even board games, I hope one day like, oh, we'll enjoy board games together. I want to like convince them to enjoy it or something. Like Kristen has softball with Maggie now, which is cool. I don't think I've found some sort of shared activity that we would both like, but it's because my activities right now are looking at my phone. So like, I got to kind of like find different activities.
That's a good reflection. Andy?
I think that I would like to be, there's two things I'm batting around. One is like, I was talking to somebody about running yesterday. I would love to be a runner, but I don't want to run. Like, it sounds like it's a great like high, but I just cannot. I can't get my mind to a place where I think that would be fun. The other thing that I was thinking about is like
he's getting choked up about it.
Being an RV person. Like I want to be an RV person, but I just don't like. There's
a lot of work.
I see those things rolling down the road, and I'm like, that's so great. And then I'm like, but the gas.
But Jennifer will not want to do that.
I'm like the gas, the insurance, the storage. I'm like, it's just so much. Like, I want to be an RV person so bad, but it feels like...
I think it's the same way with boat people.
It feels like it's just too much to overcome.
I want to be a boat person so bad, but it's so much.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Yeah. So I'd like to be an RV person, but I don't ever see that happening.
All right. Okay. Well, Andy, thank you for coming on the show. Our first topical show where we just hang out with a guest the whole time. And I hope you guys have enjoyed our 3-hour show today. And how long have we really gone?
Maybe an hour.
It's not even an hour.
No, maybe.
Well, we hope you guys have enjoyed today. We hope you've had an almost amazing time on the Almost Amazing podcast.
Thanks for listening to the Almost Amazing podcast from the CityRise Network based in Houston, Texas. CityRise is a partnership of church campuses, nonprofits, and missionaries devoted to lifting our city and the world by generously giving the gospel of Jesus Christ. For more information or to find a church campus close to you in the Houston area, visit cityrise.org.